Next level. Next level.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you to Grassroots TV for broadcasting our meeting. Today is May 12th. It's 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And the Aspen City Council will be discussing a few regional and community-wide, valley-wide, perhaps better term, affordable housing programs. I just want to put it out there from the very beginning. We're not going to be making any decisions tonight. We're not going to be making council decisions. We're going to need to look at this in a totality of needs and projects. And I just would point out that I think one of the topics we'll discuss during the retreat is the concept I've put forward that we really have a housing summit, that we begin to align with the county, Snowmass Village, our APSHA board, private sector, and nonprofits to kind of all march in the same direction and kind of be more aware of what projects and opportunities we all have and potentially address unmet needs like older capital improvements or older policies. So that's not a done deal by any means, and it's something we'll discuss as a council during our retreat. But let's welcome our presenters here today and just introduce yourselves for the records, and we'll get going.
Good evening, Council. This is Liz Axberg, Housing Policy Analyst for the City Manager's Office, and I am on the board for the City of Aspen on the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. And April's here today. She'll introduce herself and run the show. But we have been in...
You got an extra microphone on?
My bad. My bad.
Testing. Okay. Nobody ever likes that, so it's got quiet. And so today we'll be providing an update on the Good Deeds program that the City of Aspen contributed to last year. And we are going through the process of trying to continue the program, keep the momentum going. So April's going to provide some great information on what was done with that money last year and how many folks in the Valley that helped become homeowners.
Thank you. Welcome, April.
Thank you. Let's see if everything looks good. There, okay. Thanks, Liz. And as Liz said, I'm April Long. I'm the Executive Director of the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. I'll provide you with a little bit of background on who the coalition is and how we became a nonprofit, just for a reminder and for those of you that are new. And then we'll also talk about the implementation of the Good Deeds program, the success of that program, as Liz mentioned. So we were established in 2022 as a 501c3. We have 10 board members and 1 staff. I'm the staff executive director. I'm still a 3/4 time FTE for the coalition. Our membership includes all of the entities you can see there: Aspen, Snowmass, Basalt, Carbondale, Glenwood Springs, Picken County, Eagle County, as well as CMC and RAFTA. And then that's 9 members. We have 1 member at large. And so that is Heather Henry, who represents the community at large. And so that's how we get to our 10 members. The organization was really grown out of, I think, 2 efforts and 1 grassroots effort. So essentially there were some grassroots efforts beginning to look at how do we expand our affordable housing solutions and begin to think about it beyond our jurisdictional boundaries. by David Myler and Bill Lamont, two local community members who have been active in the community for years. And then the other two kind of efforts that it was born from was, one was the 2019 regional housing needs analysis. And then the second was the, I think it was a 2021 rural roadmap to recovery, which was an effort to try to focus the region's efforts to pull ourselves out of and recover from the pandemic. And so even though we weren't quite through the pandemic yet. And so those two efforts really pushed at the idea that we need to expand what we're doing in affordable housing, that while there are extensive efforts and lots of successes from APSHA and from other housing entities, certainly Habitat, that there still is opportunity and need for more housing output to be able to meet the demands of the region. So we have a mission to leverage our resources and our communities and the finances available to us to try to pool all of that together to increase the accessibility, availability, attainability of any kind of housing for our communities and for our workforce. We specifically have these programmatic strategies, so we are very intentionally not trying to be redundant with any other programs that are being offered, trying to not be redundant with any other organizations so that we can focus our efforts in filling a gap that we have in the region. So we believe that this regional approach is really important. So again, looking at expanding our boundaries, looking at the way that we as community members think of where we live and work as being more of a region and not so jurisdictional or geographically limited. We also want to be a data and information hub for the region, so we work hard to collect and store that data and to deliver that data to all of you. I mentioned that we want to be promoting innovative housing programs and those that fill gaps. We want to focus on 3 different places of home needs. So we know we have an extensive needs for renters and rentalship here in the region. We also want to help those that are trying to be homeowners, trying to like first-time home buyers. And then we also know that there is a need for current homeowners who are finding it difficult to continue to live here. And one of our other programmatic strategies that you'll hear about a lot tonight is this development neutral idea. So we are not at this time trying to build anything new. We want to work with existing inventory and make sure that we preserve and convert that to an affordable inventory. So this helps to tell some of the backstory, and I can also bring up any other data that might be helpful if you have any questions. But looking at these as areas, not jurisdictional boundaries, like we know that's not all of Aspen right there, but that's the zip code that our analysis looked at. And then I'll show you for the last decade, the change in the median income earned in those areas. So the bottom number is the median income earned in 2014. In this little graphic right here, that's 56,000. That increased by 56% in 2024 to 87,000. I'll show that for each of the regions.
And what was the baseline year again?
2014.
2014.
So in the last decade.
Okay.
And then this is nice because when you usually talk about the area median income, it's done by counties. So we had someone break this down for us by area so that you could see it with a little more detail. And then in the Aspen Snowmass area, that has increased from 72,000 in 2014 to 109,000 in 2024. So now we're going to look at those side by side with the median home price and the increases there. So again, that bottom number was the median home price in that area in 2014, and the increased percentage of 161% to almost $500,000 median home price in 2024. This is where the numbers begin to get really scary. So going from about 600,000 in the Carbondale area to 1.8 million in 2024. 700,000 in the Basalt area going up to 2.2 million. And then, as you can imagine, these numbers are large. 2.3 million to 8.3 million. I've been made aware that some of our numbers look different than some of the numbers that we're getting in the updated regional housing assessment that's being done for the Upper Valley. That could be due to we pulled out everything that was deed restricted, every partial share unit out of the analysis. So we will review and look at those numbers closer together to make sure that we are aligned in that 8.3 million
And what do you
number.
mean by partial share?
Like if you had a 1/8 share in a condo, that's not included in this analysis.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
the ability to purchase that. So that helps set the stage for what we're dealing with, the problem that we're dealing with. As you all know, there has been efforts for decades to address low-income housing and to offer low-income housing. And this very busy infographic tries to show essentially that median or that income across the bottom and where all of the categories and different programs line up. And so really, we've been addressing those that earn about less than $180,000 a year with a subsidized housing. Those that earn higher than $180,000 a year could qualify for resident occupied housing. But what I'm trying to show is the gap between what people earn and what they can afford. And so thinking back to that slide previously, where the median home price in Carbondale and Basalt was about $2 million, in order to afford that median home price, you would need to have a two-person income of about $500,000 a year. And so when we think about the incomes that are available for income earners here, there aren't very many jobs that supply that kind of an income. And so there's not an opportunity for those who make those higher incomes to move into the first step of home ownership because there aren't free market homes available to them. So there's a huge gap between what you're earning locally and what's available on the market to you for your purchase. And so that's why we launched the Good Deeds program. It's a program that allows buyers to compete in the free market with the assistance of our buy down program. So what we do is we convert free market homes into affordable homes by going in with a local income earner at the purchase, and at closing, we pay for a deed restriction and they receive their home. And so it's, let's see, we provide 30% of the purchase price at closing, and the home buyer brings in 70% of that purchase price in whatever traditional way you would buy a home. We have very few requirements to become qualified in the program. We require that this is your primary residence and that you can never short-term rent it, that you have to be employed by a local employer, and you have to maintain that local employment through the entire occupancy of the home. So we recertify that employment annually. The difference there being that you only have to be employed locally. You can change employers to a different local employer while you're living in that home. So that's a little different than any program that we have offered in the Valley right now. You can't own any other residential property anywhere. You are allowed a 3% annual appreciation on the home, and that's a simple interest appreciation on the price of the home when you bought it. And so if you take the $1 million example, if we're providing 30% of the purchase price, we would be providing $300,000 in exchange for the deed restriction. The buyer's purchase price is $700,000. They can get a 3% annual appreciation on that $700,000. And that's used to calculate their maximum resale price. They also are allowed capital improvements, but they can't exceed more than 10% of that purchase price every 5 years. We have capital improvements that are allowed and a depreciation schedule and things like that. So with that program, we've had significant success. In 7 months, we were able to do this on 9 different homes in the region that extend from Aspen to Rifle. I'm sorry, my kids are blowing up my phone, and they're all getting home from school. And so Liz, could you please respond to my daughter that I'm in a meeting and to call her dad? Thank you. Sorry, I just want to make sure there's not an emergency.
Yeah. We understand.
My apologies.
It's not an emergency.
Just make sure it's not an emergency, thank you. Okay, so the homes that have been purchased, I'll show you on a map in just a minute, range from Carbondale to Rifle. We have placed 13 working locals into secure home ownership in those 9 homes. And this little note down here, basically, of those 9 homes, 2 of them have rental rooms, and so they're renting out bedrooms to other working locals. And in one situation, a person moved from a Garfield County deed-restricted housing unit into this free market unit, and so they freed up an affordable housing situation for another local income earner. 4 of these 13 working locals report to work in Aspen. One of them is a City of Aspen employee. So that's super exciting. And the incomes range from 40% of AMI to 220% of AMI. So we had really anticipated that this program would be helping those that earn middle to higher incomes, but we do want to show that it is helping some low-income earners as well. So looking at where those homes are located, they're indicated by the little red house on the map. And those happy faces are people who are now working in, or who have been working in these locations, but are happy to be in secure home ownership. In the Glenwood area, 4 out of the 5 workers in Glenwood now are able to bike or walk to work and school for their children. So they're all reduced their commute time significantly. And these are some examples of the professions of the workers that we were helping get into home ownership. There was a lot of conversation when we were building this program that priorities should be given to essential workers. And so I'm hoping that this helps show that we would consider all of these people really essential workers in our region. They're all contributing to all of the services that we use and need on a daily or weekly basis. Thought it would also be helpful to understand how much different communities contributed to the initial $2 million and what that looks like compared to the percent of their budget. And so you'll see in 2024 the total appropriations for all of those communities and their contribution amounts in the second column. And that is a percentage of those budgets. I also wanted to compare it to their workforce, so you could begin to see, like, on a per worker basis, how much are people contributing, or how much are communities contributing. Also thought that would be helpful. And then in the last column, you can see the 2025 contributions that we've received. That $1 million from Pickens County will be in second reading this week. And so that's still being discussed, but just wanted to point out that that's what they have agreed to or are considering for this year. So we do have different programs that we want to expand what we're offering from the Housing Coalition. Looking at that blue label, expanding the Good Deeds program. So we have ideas of how we can alter this program slightly or in several different ways to begin to expand it. One of those is what I'm calling is off market. So if you think of what we've been doing as the active market, and what we would like to do is in the off market, this is where we could purchase deed restrictions from people who are not exactly ready to sell their home, but could use the cash or may want to make a charitable contribution or a legacy contribution in the future. And so they could go ahead and place a deed restriction on their home in exchange for some amount of cash to use as they see fit. When they go to sell their home or when they leave their home, then it would be sold would be facilitated in a resale through us in the affordable market. So it's very similar to the way the Good Deeds program is working right now. The other option is a pre-market consideration. So this would be where we would go in with a development that has been approved for development. So it's through the entitlement phase. It's not up for discussion anymore. They probably have some portion of the development that is required to be affordable housing already by the community or jurisdiction that they got approval through. So let's say in an example, they have to have it's a 20-unit development, 25% has to already be affordable housing, so that's their 5 units, 15 free market units. We would like to go in and buy 5 of the free market units and be early in buyer, part of their capital stack, hopefully receive discount for bulk buying and buying early, and then put in a price capped deed restriction on those and then resell those to our affordable market list. And then in land conservation, we're just expanding the opportunity to receive land if There was some to be gifted that didn't make sense to be gifted to AVLT or purchased through AVLT. We would like the opportunity to buy land that makes more sense for affordable housing and to hold that land and bank that land for future affordable housing developments. So these are just different ways to expand the Good Deeds program. The other way to expand the Good Deeds program that isn't listed up there is to also think about how we partner with different organizations in the purchase of a deed restriction. So for example, we are working on a partnership with Eagle County right now, where in the Eagle County portion of the Roaring Fork Valley, Eagle County runs a Good Deeds program on their own already. But they don't meet the same offers that we have for our Good Deeds program. Eagle County only goes up to a 15% of the purchase price. And so in our partnership, when a buyer wants to qualify for our program or does qualify for our program but wants to buy in Eagle County, in the Roaring Fork portion of Eagle County, then Eagle County comes in with 15% and we'll come in with 15%. And so the buyer gets the same benefits that are offered to everywhere else in the valley, and we split the cost and the deed with Eagle County. And so we have that partnership worked out. And I think there's an opportunity to expand partnerships like that with someone like the town of Basalt, who has not found the ability to contribute to the program yet due to restrictions on their funding. And so we could offer some kind of partnership like that where when it's purchased within the town of Basalt, they come in with the funding that is available to them then, and we come in with 15% or some other amount. And so those are ways that we can expand the Good Deeds program. The other opportunities that we're looking at is a fee-for-service model, and so we have had lots of requests for being an administrative help to running programs for different jurisdictions, and we haven't been able to offer that yet, but we are looking at that now as how would we offer a regional benefit to the administration of an entity's program. And so combining those two things where we ensure that that has some kind of regional benefit and it pays for itself, but we're able to offer and help a community run its program that wouldn't be able to on their own. And then, of course, we're constantly thinking about how we're going to fundraise, do all of these amazing things. So we just received an $80,000 grant from Aspen One and ACF. And so we're using that grant to expand our capacity and also expand our outreach into fundraising. And so we continue to seek support from individuals in philanthropy and from local governments, and we're trying to expand our support from the state and look for ways that we can also seek support from businesses and employers. Okay, these are extra slides, so I'll stay back there, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Let's start. Anybody have some questions they want to throw out there? I have a few, but I don't want to have to be first.
Sure.
Okay.
Just one question right now, refreshing my memory on the 4 employees that work in Aspen but live down and now between Carbondale and Rifle. Mm-hmm. Could they quit their jobs in Aspen and work in Carbondale and Rifle?
They could.
They just need to work anywhere in the regions that you discussed?
Yes,
Yeah.
they could. Mm-hmm. Maintain local employment.
Yeah, thank you.
Bill?
Thanks for the presentation, ladies. I think all of my concerns here at this point are about oversight and like how do we prevent this organization from becoming bloated in order to accomplish what's necessary, right? And like, does self-certification really work? What happens if someone lies to you? What happens if you have to enforce it? Who's really in charge here?
Yeah.
I think I get how this can be good. I get how this can help. I get that we have to make some sort of self-sacrifice for the greater good, which I was willing to do last year, I think, and I think I can get there again in the future, but I'm still a little tepid on like, how do we make sure this thing stays lean and efficient, but yet satisfies the requirements. So I don't know if you have any thoughts to speak to on that, or, I mean,
Certainly,
you haven't
yeah.
really experienced any challenges yet, I imagine, in terms of like,
Right.
we gotta force someone to sell, or, but you will.
Yeah.
At some point in time, so.
Right, yeah, and I mean, I think those are great concerns with launching any program, right? Like, how are you gonna now do all of the work that might be required of it? And enforcement is always an awful issue, especially when you think about a lawsuit or something like that. I think that the primary goal of the program and of the board in setting up the program is in achieving the deed restriction. And so while, yes, we're probably, someone is going to cheat the system at some point, we do have the deed restriction on the home. And so it could be that we're housing people that are not working locally, like that's a place where they could cheat. They can't, I can't imagine a scenario where they can cheat the deed restriction. And so that is what we hold, is that what we paid for, we still have. And so it could be an effort to get working locals into it, but at least we maintain that low-cost home eventually.
And you do have some compliance measures put in place as well, correct? Like an affidavit regularly too, but
Yeah.
of course, like the bigger the inventory gets, as we know, the more complicated. But yeah, but there are measures in place too.
Yeah. Yeah, we have an annual recertification process. They have to submit all of the verification documents again. They have to sign an affidavit saying they still comply with all of these things. I'm regularly checking VRBO and Airbnb and things like that.
Questions, Bill?
Yeah, I guess I also wonder whether there's some probably software solutions that you could employ to take off the administrative burden, but still help with compliance.
No, that's a good point too. I'm actually in the process of employing something called Zoho, Customer Relation Management. I think these are all comparable to like Monday or something like that helps you. And so I'm using that with a data security consultant just to ensure that the incoming information can be protected and the workflow is smoother and easier and more efficient for me. I think there are ways to build that out further for what you're talking about. So certainly we're exploring the ideas of using software to do as much as possible.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have similar questions, but we'll go down the line here.
I have a few questions, and forgive me, I missed the first round of this.
You weren't on council, how could you have missed it?
Didn't miss it.
Well, I wasn't, but some of my questions you may have already answered in a previous council. Do you have any idea how many homes the potential for these restrictions are specifically in the Aspen Snowmass area? And to follow up that, has anyone come forward and have you tried restriction in the Aspen Snowmass area?
Let's see. I do have that number, and I'm gonna I'll send everyone the exact information. I pulled that for a Picken County presentation. I think there were 130 homes in the Picken County area, up Valley of Basalt, so excluding Redstone and up the Frying Pan. As of April 2024, we pulled the data, we pulled off everything with a deed restriction, everything with a partial ownership, and it was 130 homes in the price range. So I failed to mention, we'll go up to a $1.5 million home in Basalt and Up Valley, $1.2 million home in Glenwood Springs and Carbondale up to the Basalt city limits, and then an $800,000 home down Valley of Glenwood Springs. So it did pull that data. There were I think it's 130 homes that were available as of April 2024, and about 70 homes in the Carbondale, Glenwood Springs area during that time.
Okay, that's helpful.
Okay.
You mentioned affidavit for employment. What happens when people retire?
They're allowed to retire in the home. We have provisions for that are very similar to APSHA's, I believe, which is they have to have been in the home and in the program for at least 4 years and have worked for the community for the last 10 years, for the exactly preceding 10 years.
Okay.
and be of retirement age.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just one additional thought, and you mentioned off-market deed restrictions. We have a lot of expiring deed restrictions in the Pickens County area coming in the next decade or so. Is there any potential to work with those units or those developments in buying down deed restriction again, perhaps, or helping new home buyers come in to buy down that deed restriction? It's a little convoluted, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think like, we've had conversations, but no certainty on this at all, how that could work out, but maybe something staff could look into if you're interested.
I mean, certainly if that's a need of the community, that's something we would want to look into.
That is a great suggestion, because
Yeah.
it's not with the developer, it's with the actual homeowner who would be agreeing to sign up for a new deed restriction for a certain cost.
Or perhaps it would be a different variation of this program too,
Yeah.
and something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question.
all I have.
John, you have,
I had questions about compliance, but they've been answered.
okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you. I guess I'll dive in a little more on a few of the items. Maybe more of these are comments than questions, really. But I think you have to be really careful about free market HOAs. If you are buying into an existing project and the HOA fees become unmanageable, there's certainly been examples of that in the Aspen area when there were scattered site units, and the next thing you know, they're doing a $2 million facelift, and, you know, they're doing it for the free market value that can be obtained for the free market units, but the person in the HOA, in a deed restricted, really can't afford those sort of large hits, and they don't recoup anything from it. They're capped at the 3%. So that's something I think that is of concern. Do you have like an average square footage that these homes are? Are there limitations on how much home someone can buy?
There aren't, and I don't have I could probably pull it from all the sales, the average square footage, and get that back to you. I do have the bedrooms, the bedroom count, and so the slide that I have in front of you is for 8 purchases. It was 25 bedrooms.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah. I
in
think-
general, people are buying 2 to 3 bedroom homes.
I think it deserves a little bit of a look. I know that the APSHA guidelines, I'm not sure if they've changed for what would be accepted for a single-family home, but the ones at Twin Ridge were all 1,500 square feet. And so it starts to feel a little unequal if people are able to get a buy down for a 3,000 square foot home if they just move down to Carbondale and commute, or, you know, things like that. So I think seeking some sort of parity in the program, or it's similar to capital improvements. Are the capital improvements vetted that they are needed and, you know, certainly of quality and convenience, but not gold plating a home that,
Right.
you know, gets a little extravagant and personal taste beyond the norm of
Yeah.
using up that capital improvement on those things instead of the re-roofing it or something.
I think like these concerns that I know you all have from years of experience with APSHA and dealing with thousands of more units than we are, and trying to get ahead of that before we get there are like valid. And I think like what I would love the advice on is how to balance like what Councilor Guth was talking about with how do we balance the administrative oversight that is absolutely necessary to make this a good program with how much staff we have and how much inventory we have, right? So
Right.
if we get overly burdened with like, do we care if they did this capital improvement versus this one? This is the value you get back in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, you knock yourself out with your capital improvements. Like, you know, like, you know what I mean? It's like a balance between like how much,
Well,
is it worth
10% of
yeah.
a $700,000 home would be adding $70,000 to the purchase price, you know? And that could happen every 5 years, but you're saying there's a depreciation schedule. Does the full 10% depreciate all the way down to 0 at the end of that 5-year period?
It depends on the improvement. Those that are like completing the basement, you know,
Right,
you know,
something that will
something
stay
that
there.
stays and adds value forever doesn't depreciate.
Okay.
But yeah, if you improve the countertops.
I just think
it does.
there needs to
Yeah.
probably be a little more boiling down on that. I think APSHA, it's currently one capital improvement of a lifetime of owning the unit, and they're looking at changing that to once every 10 years and having it re-up. So, but once every 5 years sounds, especially if these things could last, and you're now adding a lot of square footage, and you're doing the basement, you're redoing the attic, and you've taken your $700,000 home plus standard appreciation. Do the capital improvements add to the base for its future appreciation?
It adds to their maximum resale price. So it doesn't guarantee that they'll get the price when they go to resell it.
Right.
It's just what's allowable to be asked for.
Okay. And if someone, you know, again, I hate to bring up the things you will be dealing with in the future, but those are the things that matter for the investment of, what if it just stays on the market for 5 years? Because no one really is going to take this higher price for a deed-restricted unit that they will only receive 3% on, you know, and somebody else had gold-plated their bathroom ceilings and, you know, things like that.
Right. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that that's important, you know, and I appreciate people being able to improve the livability of a unit, certainly. So that's not my concern. I do think that it's important to dial down a little more on the STR side. I believe the city has a scrolling type of service that looks on multiple sites, not just the big prime ones. And whether you could perhaps coordinate with the Garfield County Planning and Zoning or however these other communities are double checking for that sort of violation. And it's been disappointing, but we certainly have found people in our deed restricted program doing the same thing. And so that would become an automatic eviction notice or what? I mean, what does your deed restriction allow you to do? How strong are the processes for reclaiming a unit in your deed restriction?
I think they're very similar to APSHA's processes. If you'll remember, Diane was on the programs committee that helped us write out those requirements and brought up these kinds of concerns and the language to support it. And so if I recall right, it's pretty close to what APSHA's process is.
So the fine schedule plus.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I think that there's a recent, well, not recent, it was a case that took probably 2 or 3 years or more to settle through an APSHA unit. And what tends to happen is the more assets and ability that a homeowner has to fight the deed restrictions, the longer it can go on and to sue and things like that. So scattered sites can be a little harder than others to manage in that sense.
Good point.
You know, then the one other one is I'm wondering, can you go back to your workforce slide that you have?
Before I go back, do you mind if I explain
Please.
this slide
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quick? This is one I had thought was in the presentation that I wanted to show you all. What's interesting here, it shows the purchase price in green, the deed restriction purchase price in blue. So this is what the coalition paid for the deed. And then the orange price is what the buyer paid for the home. And what's interesting to me is that now the orange price is the new resale price of that home. And so I think it just helps to show the decrease in cost that we have provided in these 9 homes, 8 homes that I'm showing there.
Yeah, and, you know, I think we remember not the COVID changes, but the recession before then saw the free market within the mid and lower valley really decreased by 20 or 30%, which was surprising to people, but it really, there was whether that was the 07 depression recession or what after that, it's hard to recall. But you did certainly see the potential that some of these homes could go down in free market value, and then those people still be trying to recoup the original value. If a home resold for less, would the deed restriction of the new buyer reset to the lower price?
Good question. We don't have an answer for that one yet.
Okay, well, I think that that's something to consider in the deed restriction, that if it's sold for less, it should not appreciate at the old level.
Right.
Okay.
Points. Yeah. Is this the slide you wanted?
No, the one, not where they're working, but what the income the number of worker slides that you had with the contributions from the different
Oh, from
governments
the
and
different
percentage of budget.
communities. There we go.
Yeah. The reason I asked this to show back up is that I'd love to know how you got those numbers, because the more often I ask, how many jobs do we have in total in Pickens County? How many jobs do we have in Aspen? We always get, it's very hard to track that. Some people's paychecks, like a Kroger, comes out of Dillon, so they're reported in Dillon, you know.
right, right.
But how do we, you know, how accurate and how do you receive your numbers of the total number of jobs that the workforce need?
I imagine I pulled that information from a previous study, but I will go back and double check.
Yeah, and it's just something more for us, for our future work,
Yeah.
even for our housing retreat, to understand this. You know, the Aspen-Pickens County Housing Authority inventory is around 3,600 units, including seasonal and rentals and ownerships. And then there's certainly some private sector ones that have been created by the school district or the hospital. And it makes you wonder what percentage of the jobs we have housing for.
Right.
And so if Aspen has 4,580 jobs in 2022, it makes you wonder, how many more units do we really need? And that's something I think the community plans have always tried to answer. You know, if it's including those two with Snowmass Village and all of Pickens County, you're up to, you know, about 1,600 based on that slide. And I realize those are older numbers, but, you know, it just starts to say, and that we're not counting the Snowmass housing into our pile that we have. You know, how many more do we need? How many workers? I mean, you're obviously helping people buy homes where it's one occupant per bedroom. Is there?
There's no restriction.
There's no restriction. So you might help a single person buy a 3-bedroom. And they might rent it, like you showed a few people do, but
Right.
it's not a maximum occupancy program.
No. Again, really trying to make the program different than the other programs that are available so that people have more options. What we find is like you know, with the little bit of data that we have, the families that bought in this program in Carbondale could have afforded to buy in Pickens County. Like they could have purchased one of those homes under 1.5 million, but it would have been a 1-bedroom home. And they have families and they want to grow their family. And so this was a better option for them to buy a bigger home closer to their kids' schools, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can understand. I mean, housing is just not an easy or single solution, and
No, yeah.
all families are in different situations. And so what sort of verification are you doing or planning on doing on these employment affidavits?
So they're required to list who their employer is, how many hours, what their income is, even though we do not restrict based on income. And then contact information for those employers, and so then I can contact the employers and verify their employment. They also have to show recent pay stubs and tax returns.
Okay. I think that's pretty much all my questions right now. Did anybody else have anything else that came to mind in the course of this? No. Okay, well, thank you very much. You know, I know I personally, and I think the board is very interested in regional approaches. We know that the jobs bleed up and down the valley, and so do the commuters and the workforce. And as I said at the beginning of the meeting, we're not making any decisions today, but appreciate this work and the contributions you've been able to make.
Thank you. I appreciate the support from all of you last year that made this program successful last year. All right, and I think that your questions, Mayor, about the workforce would be probably a good thing to tackle in that housing needs assessment.
So City Council this was in March, did approve a contract for us to start a housing needs assessment. And in large part with, we're working to comply with Senate Bill 174. That's requiring all local governments to complete housing needs assessments. And I'm hoping that we can address some of those questions that you brought up today, especially, like you already said, it's a complicated region, and we included Pickens and Garfield County, and it's just to try to capture all of the commuting workforce, but where it gets funny is just where people actually want to live, where people actually want to work, where the capacity for housing to build is. And so we hope to address some of that.
Well, and that actually brings up one other thing I should mention, but it would be nice to see your coalition working so that all the communities start bringing their housing mitigation goals from new growth up. And I noticed that Garfield County is not one of your contributors to this program. And it just is something that we're not going to buy our way out of the problem, and we're not going to grow our way out of the problem. We need to work both aspects of this so that we're not constantly losing 30 units or 60 units here and there.
Only to have to pay more to replace them.
Yeah, that we're replacing 9 or 10, or we're losing 2 to 1. And I think that's a little bit of what Aspen experienced. So if you're taking away from the Aspen experience, whether there were traditional free market units that were worker housing, and no matter how many we replace, we lose more. Yeah. Okay.
Great points. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much again.
Thanks.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
And next up, we're going to hear from some of the projects with Habitat for Humanities and the success you've had and what things you're moving along with. I don't know if we need any IT help changing the slideshow. There we go.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're on the Zoom, and hopefully we can go ahead and just share this with you. So quick introductions, and it's wonderful to be here with you. And again, sharing 25 years of Habitat's experience in providing affordable housing with families throughout our region. Gail Schwartz, now an advisor to Habitat, as we welcome as our new CEO, Darla Calloway, and so many of you I know. There's some of you I have not met personally and would just offer that you connect with us, and I think Councilor Guth is the one person I don't feel that we've had a chance to connect much. So that being said, bring about 50 years of experience in this realm to this table, and also find that we have a lot of opportunities that we can collaborate, and fortunately the mayor and I go much further back than we want to admit. So
Don't age me, please.
no, age. So introducing Darla real quick as our new CEO as of last week.
Good afternoon. I'm Darla Calloway. I'm excited to be here with you. We have worked together on some housing projects in my former role, and I'm excited to be here, sitting here with Gail and Jason. Would you like to also say hello and introduce?
Jason has also stepped up. We had a big shift this week, kind of an exciting week for all of us.
It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Jason Schraub. I've been here in the Valley for about 5 years now, and I'll be the Chief External Relations Officer, so working a lot on our partnerships and fundraising and so on. But turn it over to these two.
Awesome. So you received an email. Thank you to Diane. I connected you with an email, and I think it's loaded up, and we'll just walk through real quickly. It is a handout on our modular production facility. Depending upon how your insomnia was this weekend, there was a lot of data in there, and if you wanted to do a deep dive, so that's where we are. But
Okay, wait, let's check the mics here.
sorry. Sure, but there was one I think we had already loaded up
Thank you.
that was sent this weekend. Did you mention that you had? There was a 4-page. There. Just 4 pages in a slide that we.
Yeah, that was distributed to council, I believe, and then we made sure, we got it a little late, it was added to the packet online so that members of the public looking at the agenda.
This is the one that the packet we sent online, so.
Yes, that is the packet right here.
There was one previously, remember we talked about, that had about 6 pages, so. And so if that packet came in.
Give me 1 second.
Sorry, thank you so much. we'll just talk through those, a couple of pages quick, and then move into a PowerPoint that we wanted for a bigger presentation now, but with our background.
All right, so yeah, if you want to share that, we'll go here. Is that good?
Yeah, but we don't have the other one.
You don't have that?
There we go.
Okay, so the packet that you received was a breakdown, and obviously we can't be pulling that up right now, of the project.
We all have it on our screens, some of the previous 4 pages.
Okay, so just talking through that quickly, this has been a 1.5-year effort, looking at the modular production facility. It's been a real lift for a little small entity. We previously had a little 3-person admin staff bringing on last year about $60 million worth of investments to provide affordable housing for our region. And the real solution moving forward is the ability to continue at scale to do this work, and that is through modular production. So we'll talk about that a little further. But what you saw, I would say, bottom line, remembering from that, if you had time to look through that packet, that we plan to be producing about 200 modules a year, starting at, in this next year, about $160 a square foot, be ultimately producing 64 jobs and training 100 students a year. This is a transformational concept that will be in Rifle, that will serve our region to produce not just affordable housing, but also a workforce. So just plant that in the back of your mind. But I think what we'll do is we'll talk about the slide deck, and we'll jump back and forth a little bit. But what we wanted to do is just introduce ourselves, as to certainly some of the new members that may not be as familiar, and that we see that increasing affordable housing requires multifaceted solutions. You heard about one, and some of these are things that we've been able to undertake over the last 25 years of our leadership in this area. But why is this affordable housing too hard to solve? And we came up with a couple concepts that right now it's costing too much to provide new affordable housing units, and we don't get enough housing in return, per your comment that we're catching up, but we're, I think, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And then the growth pressures and cost pressures. And then let's talk about the environmental factors that, we have a commitment to a green mission, and that's where Habitat builds net zero affordable housing. And that net zero housing is what is I think, a winner for our production and our facilities and our neighborhoods, which you see here, Parachute to Aspen. And we have this is a number of homes that we had built in the dark black. And then the little grays are the ones that are under construction right now. And so 70 homes are built with families completed, 12 homes are under construction. And then we have, and the homes in the little boxes are ones that are coming up, and including a couple of the projects we'll talk about that we have underway. And then the green is our modular production facility in Rifle. Any questions about kind of where we are and who we're serving? In terms of, one of our goals is having people live and work in their communities. This driving 5 hours a day for families to come work here is really, I think, is a social justice issue. And I think we all need to be all in on it. So with regard to this, probably wonderful home neighborhood that you're probably very familiar with, 27 homes, teachers and working families, deed restricted 70, 100% AMI, in partnership with Pitkin County and the Roaring Fork School District. It was awarded the Habitat for Humanity International Best Multifamily Housing Project Design in 2021. So this made international news, but you can see the cost, you can see what it takes, again, to produce homes of this quality in this location, and what we seek in terms of grants and donations. It's a big job for us, And again, these are all, as we said, net zero projects.
Before
net
we
zero
move
homes.
off this one, I have to admit, I hammered a few nails down there.
Thank you, thank
On
you.
this project. But asking, in your project costs, do you include the land donation by the Roaring Fork School District?
Yeah, that was in the overall cost.
Okay, so that's in the
And
government
it's
grants?
considered part of the donations, that governmental grants, that's the 7.2.
Somewhere in there. Okay, I just
That
wanted to
is.
make sure.
So it was 7 acres at about $3.2 million. And then the infrastructure donated by Picken County was around $3 million. So all the roads and curbs and infrastructure. So that comes to that $7.2 million governmental grant. Yeah,
Perfect,
exactly.
thank you for that.
It's again, these are all expensive. You're all in the business. You know what we deal with. And so this is our newest. These are newest homes. There are 20 homes here, townhouses, a fourplex and a sixplex that are, again, they are deed restricted for 80% AMI, a tough mark to make, and they have to live and work in Rifle. This is our way of investing in a bedroom community. And we invested in that school district, those teachers, and that hospital, and those social services. These are the people living in these beautiful homes now, and certainly businesses. And that was our goal. It was a donated parcel from a private individual. And then this was a unique concept because we stepped up with ADA accessible homes for people that need it, but it's actually part of their inventory long-term. They'll have 27 affordable units and 8 ADA accessible units that are these one-bedroom flexes. New concept for Habitat, new concept for us. You can see the costs. And we'd love to have you come and see this. We'll have a ribbon cutting on this last sixplex, and this is our crew standing up on the balcony as we have moved in. The majority of those families, 14 families, financed them, and we built a neighborhood with, I think we have about 12, 17 kids now, and it's when neighbors are working, helping build each other's homes, it's an extraordinary experience. So up and coming is our 6 net zero condominiums in Glenwood Springs, working on a parcel donated, infill parcel by Glenwood Springs, 100% AMI. All of our projects have been designated enterprise zone, with the exception of Basalt Vista. And that means that we have really exceptional tax benefits associated with anyone who donates to the project, to Habitat. And one of our mechanisms is through these priorities that we allow for businesses and governments to buy a priority to be able to put someone in that home to own in perpetuity. So the priorities were 150,000. There were 5 at Wapiti for 100. But this one, there will be several priorities available. We'll talk about that other priority system. But it really does help stabilize the workers for specific entities and make sure you always have someone owning, and you know the value of owning. So moving on, this was a big step for us. This basically was an 88-unit buy-down that Habitat undertook. It was a $35 million purchase, free market property, and what we saw is you have about 1,400 free market rental units in West Glenwood Springs. No ownership. And these are you have 1,400 rental units in that region. This is basically kind of a Wall Street play, LIHTC play. There are no real guidelines or deed restrictions on rental homes, on rental units in West Glenwood. So we stepped up to a very out-of-the-box, expensive buy-down, basically, of 88 units to convert 88 apartments in a building that's 2 years old and convert them to condominiums. So that we have aligned them by price. You'll see the price by income and the opportunity. It's an extraordinary undertaking, but we feel 88 homeowners will stabilize the workforce. When this was bought, you had in Aspen, Snowmass, about 20% of these residents, of the 88, that worked in Aspen and Picken County and Snowmass. So that there is the fact that now they are on a bus line, and this is a win-win for all of us.
And where's that one located, Gail? Is
I'm
that-
sorry.
Is that near the
so
Targets?
The Meadows.
Okay.
The Meadows, so you have Target and you have Petco or whatever. And then we're right above that on the flat part of the parking lot. There are 143 pylons securing this building to bedrock. It is one of the loveliest places. We bought it. It was built to condo standards, so we didn't have to do any improvements to the building, just go through that government to do the change in the zoning.
Gail, could you talk about the employer priority
Yeah, so.
structure you created for
Great,
here and how
thank
that
you.
worked out? And
Yeah, thank you. So we call them priority partners, and you can see that City of Glenwood Springs, it's kind of a unique partnership. Garfield County has one. Garfield County Libraries, one. Picken County has 3, and the Fire District has 2. Roaring Fork School District has 10. Pizza Company, 1. That's our only private guy, but got to take advantage of that tax benefit. Town of Snowmass has 2. And we'd love this to be something that Aspen would consider as well. It will always be part of your housing stock. And it is, then as you can see, what these are, they're studios and 1-bedrooms. It's that entry point that before someone buys a Good Deeds multifamily or 3-bedroom home, this is where they can come in and they can purchase. You can see the purchase prices aligned by the AMIs. And then we will have a portion of them that will be RO, and that will have, that deed restriction that's unique to ROs. But it will always be part of the insulated part of the housing stock in the community. So entry point, and then we have unique mortgages that help benefit 80 to 100% AMI households. And then the others are going to be from local lenders, and then the ROs, obviously, local lenders as well.
sorry, could you, what I'm interested in you talking about is what I think is a pretty unique concept that you came up with, which is these priority partners and what that means and what that is and how it ended up working. So could you sort of talk about what that
We started in Rifle. We have a gap. You build for 300, but you sell for 200 because that's how we back into these prices. So we always have that gap that what it costs us to build and what we sell for. Part of that is getting partners in Wapiti. We had two sold to Alpine Bank, so they'll always have 2 of their employees that will always have the ability to buy a home. 1 was for the city of Rifle, and then 2 were for Garfield County. So that means that they will have someone working for them that can buy the unit. We do all the support, the home buyer education and the mortgages and et cetera, et cetera. Should they leave Alpine Bank, that person, then there is another 15 units that the priority will shift to. And if that family stays working in that community, they stay in their home. We don't support tying someone's job to their home. And that's where we experienced it at Salt Vista. But how you can help create a resource that businesses can always plan on as being part of their housing stock. Maybe they buy a couple rental units, but homeownership, you own, you stay. You own, you stabilize your housing costs. You own, your children stay. Your children succeed. Your community participation grows. All the wonderful things that homeownership was what we believe will benefit the community.
And Bill, I would add,
Just to follow up, though, are you saying, Gail, that the person leaves Alpine Bank and then the next unit that becomes available for sale in that complex will have to go to an Alpine Bank employee?
Correct.
But it could be a period of time before another unit comes up, but that was part of the deal?
Theoretically.
And what did those partners put down in terms of a cash deposit to become a priority partner?
100,000 in Wapiti, and but we raised that for the soon to be the Carter. But that 100,000, it doesn't buy it down. It doesn't do anything except for a right.
Gets
You
it created.
You can't buy a unit for $100,000 or 150, but you sure can have the right to one, and it's sort of a property right thing.
Thank you.
For L3, the Carter is 150 for the priorities. It was essential to bringing those priorities online in order to get the project underway. We're still interested in those priorities as we're now starting to move the units to the home ownership. There is this lag of how some homeowners, some renters have decided, no, I'm not ready for that. I'd like to look at something else. we're still really interested in bringing those partners to the table as we're moving this project from rental to homeownership.
And you can see that was our capital stack.
Yeah.
That priority, and then City Glenwood Springs put $3 million into this project. $1.5 million in a grant and $1.5 million in a loan. So it truly was a regional investment, but we took the lead on and took the risk. So here we are.
I think it's quite a compelling program that you did, and if you have any more information that you can send to us
I
as a
have
follow-up
so
to
much
this meeting
information for you.
on that priority system, I think it's really interesting in terms of what you've done and how it might apply to more things that you're doing in the future and some things that
And
City of
converting,
Aspen's doing.
converting these rental units.
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
you-
and how many units do you have left to accept partnerships on?
Oh, well, we wanted to go to 30, and we've sold 20.
Okay.
So that's what our goal was, to sell 30 because it makes our pro forma work. So just saying. And, all right, well, thank you for your interest in that, because I know we talked about it when the previous presentation. But so Aspen's innovative solution to the housing crisis. And ta-da, here is our modular housing workforce trade center. Again, a very significant cost. We have worked with bond counsel and underwriters in Denver to come up with this bond financing. We did not get, even though we applied, Prop 123 funds from the state. Bad on them. They didn't invest in a Western Slope facility, and unfortunately, didn't think a nonprofit could pull this off. Well, watch me. And it is one of those scenarios where we have to have this solution because we cannot continue to build. What's it cost to build here? 3,000 square foot? We can't build affordable housing going forward without a mechanism of this nature that can do it at scale. So, ta-da, here's our pitch about the fact, look what the costs have been for labor and materials, and then look at what has happened as an industry, the efficiency and the productivity of the construction industry as compared to most other industries. That is what drives the cost. Lack of a workforce, less productivity in the industry, and then that which drives up labor and material costs. A little bit to absorb there, but it is, we're really a victim of that. So what does the construction industry need to do? Innovate and adopt off-site construction. That's why we are in this position to create a sustainable workforce and housing development. And we all know the gaps, and we even were very generous in this assumption on per square foot costs, up valley, mid valley, and then what the goals will be when you can be purchasing a unit out of the factory at $160 square foot, and then add in the on-site costs. You all have been involved in modular production for your neighborhoods. You understand the challenges and what it takes to bring on a project and the costs and the unpredictable aspect. But building this down the road in Rifle really does provide quality control for building projects in this community.
Thank you.
So here we are. What are the benefits and the barriers, and why we feel our strategy, and you could probably pore over this for a while, that we feel that we can support the design and development process. I think Commissioner Rose understands how we can partner on different entities and actually help you bring projects online that can be satisfied with a project library, and then work with your general contractor, or we can even be the general contractor, as we did it at our projects now, and then the market perception. I'll just speak to this, that there is a very modest absorption rate of modular throughout the state. It's pretty low. It's like 2%. But in the resort communities, and you all know, being part of all these resort communities, there's a higher rate of adoption because of the cost of construction and the uniqueness of the land, and higher rate of adoption for a modular offsite construction because we know what it costs here, we know what it costs to build in Rifle. So just saying that market perception, that we can do a lot better and introduce this, and we're underway. So providing we get our bond pricing on the 20th, we are in business, we have started, we have this plan. It's a little interesting, this parcel, 10 acres, part of a 100-acre Rifle Innovation Center in Rifle next to the water treatment plant west of Rifle. We have leased 10 acres at $1 a year for the next 50 years. So at $1 a year so we have, it's a turnkey site, fully improved, and also it's a reclaimed site as well. So it's, this was really designed for these improvements, the investment by the county, the state, the feds, and the community to have this kind of, basically industrial production at this site long-term. So I'd love to take you down. So we have a great picture of Sam. I should have put it in the slide deck, standing in front of the project. So here we are. This shows what our production schedule will be. We believe this can be accelerated considerably by the number of jobs. We're going to move our crew of 14 inside to start working and not have them working either at 3 below or 113 outside in Rifle, so you know what that looks like. And this is what we have, a very flexible design of the plant that can build, a single-family home or a 4-story apartment complex. So it has and all, again, net zero standards and all of that ability. And now, how can we partner with the city of Aspen? And we believe that this facility in Rifle can build Aspen's future affordable projects. And then our request, this is not a funding meeting, I know that, but if you looked at the layout of all the costs associated with the plant, how we got to the 19 millions, and this need for 2.5 million in projected working capital. Those are the funds that we are asking for support from communities that would like to have a priority in this little production. We will be producing 6% of the regional need with our 200 boxes, per our Gruen and Gruen study. Happy to provide that to you. But the need for affordable housing production over the next decade and beyond is extraordinary. And we will only be able to supply 6% of that need. So having partners that can have priority in the production, then that appeals to us, because coming up front, like in our other priority program, saying, help us with that 2.5% working capital we need when that building is funded. The building's coming from TPI in Grand Junction, ready to be put up. A megawatt of solar will be on the roof, and that will produce it. I mean, we are ready to be in production, and we have that 19 million being funded by the bond issue for all the equipment and all the building. We just need that little chunk for the first 18 months of working capital, and that's what helps us get the doors open. Hopefully that made some sense, and you've got great resources here that can help with any of the answers, but really appreciate your time.
Bill.
Thanks. Firstly, thank you for all the great work that Habitat has done and continues to do in our valley. Appreciate it. It's one of the few sort of physical manifestations of the great work that a nonprofit can do, and you can see it every day and touch it, which is neat. I have studied and followed modular construction for a long time as part of my career, and have learned a lot about it. I'm not sure that the numbers that you're presenting in terms of dollar savings really ring true in the industry. I think it saves time. I'm not sure it saves money, based on what I've learned. That's not ultimately my point, though. My point and question to you is, there's been a history in Colorado of modular construction firms that have done very, very poorly. Almost all of them that I'm aware of have gone bankrupt in sub 5 years. I've toured the facilities. There's nothing particularly cutting edge about what they're doing in there. It's just indoor construction that's being shipped to the site.
Exactly.
I couldn't understand, I still don't understand why the failure rate was so high. So what I'm asking you is, what do you know about that? How are you going to prevent the same fate? What have they done wrong? How can you avoid that?
Great. Terrific, because that was a lot of people, like Prop 123. Well, how do you think you can do this? Well, we brought in industry experts, national industry experts who have run plants for the last 30 years. That individual is coming here to run that plant with his 2 top engineers. It's not us, but we're bringing in experts that are consultants in the industry and have operated plants to operate this plant. The fact that they agreed to do that, this fellow has been with us and watched this for almost 2 years. Secondly, we hired a group, Prosino, and that was a PhD in engineering that used to design automobile plants. And he understands cost of construction, cost of production, cost. They also have looked at every modular production facility from here to Idaho to Nebraska and compared that cost of production. The fact, and also, let's look at carbon footprint. You're dragging this stuff halfway across the country. There's a cost associated with that. More importantly, the underwriters and our engineers have scrutinized this pro forma. I would love to have an hour of your time to walk through. I'd love to have you sit with the Prosino consultants to see why this is unique. It's unique in this location. It is unique. We plugged in all of the projected costs, and we've been building for 25 years. We know many of those things. We're moving those guys indoors. Just as you said, this is pretty simple. We know how to build a 6-plex, 3-story 6-plex. So we're just taking our experience indoor. I'd like to just make a comment that other plants, first of all, if you're in the Front Range, your modular production is not as attractive to the Linares, to the other groups building neighborhoods. Boom, you can't compete. But you can compete in western Colorado when it costs in Aspen $3,000 per square foot to build, or whatever you're going to build for, or $500 in Carbondale. We're looking at a very small footprint, but we can supply Habitat Mesa County. We can supply Habitat Eagle County and Summit County. We can supply Steamboat. But our goal is really to look at, and we have put together a tracker of entities that have written letters of interest to buy these units and basically have sold the first 3 years, and then have a list of, I know, I didn't start drinking already today, but it is of about 2,000 other interests in units people want. So we are uniquely positioned, and that's what the study, the Gruen study said. The reason this place and this project, separate from others, can be successful. Gruen was part of that 2019 study that looked at housing in this region. So we brought them, we had to, as part of the bond issue. They have really put our feet to the fire to make sure they weren't going to bring anyone to buy bonds they didn't have 100% confidence in.
Yeah. Bill, in addition to the rigor that Gail is talking about, I'm day 7 on the job. That was a really important question to me in considering this opportunity. I had the same reaction, the same gut reaction. And why is a nonprofit able to do this when a private group is struggling, or like you're saying, you're naming the statistic, which is not a pretty picture in front of us. What was really an important conclusion that I came to is actually a nonprofit is perfectly situated to do this because they have less of the pressure of schedule. What I am understanding from the other modular facilities is the pressure on paying down debt and the pace at which projects have to get out the door, this consistent rhythm of go, go, go with no breath. There's a lot of flexibility that I am learning about in our bond financing that takes some pressure off of that go, 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 where we can flow with the pace of the projects in the Roaring Fork Valley, being positioned in Rifle opens us up to help other housing organizations in Eagle, Summit, the Western Slope. So there's a comfort level that we want to be here, this is our home turf, and we're comfortable that we have these other communities too that can help with the backfill of the projects. I'm really glad you asked that question. It was important for us to get to today.
And even though we've done it for 25 years, we were going to be out of the business. We couldn't continue to raise $150,000 per home in subsidies. We had to find a way to make it more efficient. We have the opportunity, you could produce ADUs here. This line is so flexible, it could do a 12 by 30 box, or you could do a 18 by 64 box. You could do a replacement for trailers that could be net zero. Imagine the Delta being able to buy a new mobile home and replace mobile homes. But you could also have an ADU line that could come fill in. We have so much need, and I'd love to share the Growing and Growing study that backed up, because our ability to make this kind of investment, this is a big deal for Habitat for Humanity, step up to a bond issuer, but we're so committed to the long-term ability to stabilize families and businesses and economies in this region. As the mayor said, we're one economy now. We're one group of people. Build a widget in Rifle and bring it to Snowmass and Aspen. Think of the number of people that didn't have to bring their pickup up here and swing a hammer. This is why this is the best solution. It trains a workforce in Rifle that could attract more industry to the region. And let's create a Colorado River Valley economy so people aren't so reliant on driving 5 hours to these jobs. Just saying.
Okay, so long story short, the answer to my question is demand solves the problem
Yeah.
more than anything else, right?
Exactly.
Is you just think that there's
Yeah.
a lot more demand locally than there is elsewhere because of competition.
And that's why that plant in Pueblo couldn't get the business and went out of business because they sold a whole bunch to California. No, let's stick close to home.
Local.
Let's solve our own problems. And Basalt Vista, this will look like Basalt Vista. I will say that some of the other products you see are not of the quality and the caliber that we believe in, and that are net zero, because they need to be all unique and they need to be attractive. But when you have a cookie cutter coming out in Buena Vista, that's a different product
Understood.
than what we're pursuing.
What's the specific request, excuse me, what's the specific request of us?
So you saw my handout that obviously I can't pull up right now, but that handout, it had our pro forma in it, and it also had our costs. So you see what the bond pays for all the building, all the equipment. To open the doors, we need $2.5 million in working capital. We would love a contribution towards that $2.5 million of working capital.
And
That's
we're not
what
making
raised.
any funding decisions.
Sure.
Understood, I'm trying to
We're gonna-
understand what the
Right,
request
that's
is.
the only.
Yeah, and she's saying a portion of it, you're not necessarily asking for the full amount. I mean, that's,
Sure. Sure, whatever you
And
feel.
how much have you raised towards this effort in total so
So
far?
we've raised the $25 million bond issue. City of Rifle is the conduit issuer, so-called a raise, okay? But that $2.5 million, in full disclosure, we just borrowed from the Denver Foundation from a donor advised fund. We just borrowed it. The pro forma pays the bond back. Very difficult for us to be able to pay this additional amount in working capital in the short time frame that loan is. So we are looking now, we're taking a deep breath. We're finally ready to get this thing, continue to
Producing.
build. And so that's why we're saying, come along with us. And know that when you need homes, we could build the lumberyard. You could build those units there. You could build them there.
Okay, no private donations, pure donations with no repayment
Oh, no,
terms
we have-
received so far?
We've had a lot of donations. We've raised about $1.7 million
Specifically for this project?
that went into planning, went into our consultant fees, our design fees, and all of that came from mostly individuals and foundations, locally and primarily in the Front Range. So that's the work that we've done to date, but that's why we can go with a shovel-ready project, because we can get the financing and all the design, layouts, everything is in place for the plant to operate. Everything is in place for the plant to operate. So that's
Except the
really-
money.
Except for that 2.5 million to open the doors once we built it and have all the equipment, but we need that little piece. So there is a loan, the underwriters insisted we had that lined up, and I lined it up through a grant. I lined up through a loan, but I'd like to kind of whittle away at that.
So
Understood. Thanks for
getting
answering
to
all my
this
questions.
point, it was all the soft costs effectively on the project, so. Good questions, Bill, really
Yeah,
helps inform
design
the
and
dialogue. Other
Consultants.
questions on this side of the table?
No questions, just comments.
Okay. Sam, did you have any questions?
Yeah, he's been there.
I've been there, yeah.
Okay, great. I think this has a lot of very interesting aspects to it, in particularly that you have goals of net zero, which are very copacetic with the concern we all have with climate change at this point. And I was at the Housing Symposium at the Meadows about a year and a half ago or so. I'm not sure which one it was, but, you
And
know.
only.
Yeah, I know, there were so many partners sponsoring it. But definitely heard from Rifle community members there and council members there saying how they wanted their own economy to be developed there. They don't want to just become a bedroom community. So I think that that's an important item. And you have successfully finished going out to the bond market at this point in time?
Our bond issue will be priced on the 20th.
On the 20th of May. So, yeah, I know the bond market had been a little crazy of
Third
late.
time's the charm. We did it, our pricing was the first downturn. The second pricing was the whoa downturn. And now people are stabilized. We have 5 institutional investors quite interested. We've redeveloped the preliminary offering memorandum 3 times, answering their questions. We have something they feel comfortable with. And I'll just make one last comment. This size facility, 66,000 square feet in Rifle, it's a model for rural housing development. You could build this up in Craig and do housing for a steamboat. This is a model that was recommended to the state to build rural housing efficiently and effectively.
And speaking of that, there was a modular bill that just went through the state legislation this year. I believe you testified on it. I believe it passed. Can you tell us what was the essence of that bill?
It really did simplify the approval process and the certification process that basically brings in, there's already a third-party investigator, person that comes in and
Inspector.
Thank you. Third-party inspector that comes in to the plant and also inspects. But then you also had to go to DOLA. And DOLA had to certify the plans and inspect the plant. And so we're saying, no, and they put their little label on it, and then you have to bring the third-party guy in. It basically makes that one process. And they'll have the ability to set standards for regions that, snow loads, winds, all the standards for the region. That will hold each production facility based upon region. And it really is a big help. Also, it takes, no offense to the state electrical board, plumbing board, all those boards, it takes them out of the picture as well. I mean, because they were imposing their inspections. Well, that can be done by the third-party inspector. Mm-hmm. And so it really is streamlining cost and reviews. It is a really excellent first step. We're all about it because you know what it's like to get state inspectors up here.
Yeah. And I think it was quite a while ago now where the Kiowa laws to say you can't have a single-family home neighborhood forbid modular construction.
There's some communities that still say you can't have modular, but in this valley.
Yeah, I was under the impression that that sort of bias had been taken away.
I think so.
Okay, any other questions or comments? John, you have some comments? And again, we're not making commitments at this meeting.
No, I just appreciate the time.
I
Appreciate it at the time.
just want to thank you for a great presentation. You've come to us with an incredible track record so far with Basalt Vista and Wapiti Commons and the hotel conversion. The fact that this is going to be designed to produce net zero is really important to me. The fact that you've got state and federal support as well as obvious local support from the city of Rifle really speaks to me. And our housing needs are going to get worse before they get better. I think the location for this is ideal, and I really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this so far, and this checks a lot of boxes for me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Christine?
No, just thank you for the presentation. Everything that you've put forth is a testament to creative, out-of-the-box thinking and partnerships. And like you said, I think a model. I live in a modular house, actually, so wish this would have been around when we put it in a decade ago. So it's a cool project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments at all or anything?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you as well. Obviously, I got to tour all these sites, and I was nothing but impressed. And I'm more hopeful than anything that there'll be opportunities for this with us. I think the hardest part, honestly, for me is finding those locations where they can be put. But otherwise, I mean, I'm nothing but impressed, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll thank you too, on behalf of all of our citizens and everyone who's interested in housing or who has benefited from your work thus far, or gotten a great deal down at that Restore, so.
Oh, yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah, 24/7.
It does, and how does Habitat work, just as a real basic, not a long answer, but does National Habitat for Humanities help fund or back loans or anything?
It's the other way around.
Oh, okay.
We help fund them, and it is unfortunate that, we got to kind of be on our own and scrappy and pulling together, and also we have the flexibility to do this, and I think just a really quick answer, I appreciate Commissioner Rose bringing up finding the land, but so we walked out of that forum in March, a year ago, that we said there are 3 ways to solve it: public-private partnerships. So a private developer has a housing component. We can only build deed-restricted housing from this plan. They have a component they need to be building, guess who they should call? And then if you did, certainly philanthropic support helps us and governmental policy helps us, but there are enough private partnerships and public partnerships where I think we can find land opportunities going forward.
And I should add about that, Restore, the purpose is to pay for the administrative costs of the organization so that all other support goes directly to projects.
100%, and enterprise owned.
Very good. Any other closing comments from our new director here?
No, just thank you so much. Thank you to Gail for, this is a tremendous amount of work and vision, and we are so excited to walk alongside Gail in this community and see this forward. We're ready to run fast.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
I'm happy to sit down with that pro forma. Let me know.
Very good. And I think that's the end of our work session agenda. Did you have any announcements or anything you need to keep us up on?
I was just going to mention that tomorrow night we do anticipate a long work session, or excuse me, regular meeting and exec session, so I would just anticipate we'll feed you tomorrow night.
Okay. Very good. That sounds good. Thank you, Grassroots TV. I think we're signing off now.